So, large-scale Scrum and what it is. And first about me. I'm Nyman, one of the few large-scale Scrum trainers in the world and one of the few certified Scrum trainers. There is one other here in the audience, that one with the beer. So, how we ended up having two certified Scrum trainers here, I have three one. You also. I didn't know that.
He's new.
He's new. Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
First Polish CST.
First Polish. Great. So, large-scale Scrum, you think it's something new. I have worked with large-scale Scrum since 2005. There's nothing new about it. It has been there for a long time. Nobody just have been talking about it. And I have no idea why it became so popular in last years. So, something about me. I started my software development career in 1995, and since then I have been getting my money out of software development, being some developing code, being some manager, being some kind of product owner, being trainer, whatever. So what are we going to talk today? First, we're going to talk what are the problems when you scale in organizations. Then we're going to look at a little bit about control theory and how that affects planning. And then finally we look how large-scale Scrum could help you when you scale your organization or when you are growing. And then I tell you about the first case that I was working in 2005 with large-scale Scrum. So, problems when you are growing, called also coordination chaos. Is your organization in this state? Nothing is moving. People are standing and waiting. Maybe somebody gets through, but maybe not. You don't know what is going on there. How do you end up in this situation? Using common sense and fashionable solutions, of course. Everything that's there. So let's see how you end up there. You start your business. You have some customers. You have some manager that has some money to invest in the company who hires some specialist and they deliver the thing to the customer and customer gives you money. Looks good. So we need more specialists when we get more customers. So we keep on hiring specialists. We have UI specialists, middleware specialists, database specialists, Java specialists, Scala specialists, and specialization seems to work really well. It confirms your thinking that specialization is good. So the growth continues. At some point, you notice that when you have lots of specialists, you need to coordinate things. So you hire professional coordinators that are project managers that coordinate things, and you are happy as a manager and owner of the company that everything is working fine. The coordinators become, of course, the hero from management point of view. They are able to deliver things. But management is already losing touch with the reality, and they have no idea who is working there anymore in organization. They think not more about people. They think about we have these resources there because they don't work with the resources anymore. They work with the project managers. They are the important persons there. Then at some point, the organization grows and it grows and the project management is not able to anymore handle it. And then you end up in this kind of organization where you have, how they say, wasting, waiting, loss of knowledge, bad quality, misleading measures, bad atmosphere, unclarity. Knowledge and power is always somewhere else. Have you been in this kind of organization? Somebody says yes. Rest of the people are silent. They don't admit it. All of the big organizations tend to be something like this. So, if you don't change thinking, you basically keep on hiring more specialists, more project managers, more projects in parallel. So you keep on pushing more and more things into the system and hope that something comes out. As I said, management has lost this kind of feeling of the people that are working there, so they start looking this kind of a value in the organization, that we have valuable project managers and we have the costly people there developing software. So what could the management be thinking then when we have cost? And we cannot control those people there below. Of course, they think that let's outsource the cost and keep the valuable project managers and coordinators. Have you ever worked in a company who has outsourced their developers? Yes. Yes. Sorry?
We are outsourced here.
You are outsourced here. All right. I worked in one Finnish company. Basically, they have outsourced all the developers, kept the valuable coordinators and project managers, and then they squeezed the subcontractors, this kind of basically developing something, and squeezed the subcontractors with the tight contract, lots of penalties. As a side effect, developing anything was impossible in this company. They were pretty much have this kind of long-term track record that all their new software development project fails. But they have no clue why it fails. Even if you go and tell them that their model is not working, they don't believe you. They think that it's not wrong with the model because we were thinking that specialization is the good thing and we outsourced the cost and kept the valuable people. They are not admitting that they are wrong. So, what to do? In this kind of organization, the only thing is to wait until they die away. So, from this kind of one way of looking at this kind of a specialization is our coordination chaos is moving through specialization hell. That where you specialized and what are the symptoms there and how does it actually go? I draw a couple of pictures on that. The most typical way of ending up in this coordination chaos or specialization hell is using things called component teams. Do you know what are component teams? Do you know the side effect of component teams? Some people say, yeah, rest of the people are silent. So maybe I tell you something about that.
They write awesome code.
Cool. Yes.
Awesome component.
Awesome components. Let's start with that write awesome code. Let's assume we have one component team. They write awesome component code in the component A. They think it's awesome. Everybody else who looks at the code thinks this doesn't make any sense.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. Why do they think that their code is so awesome?
They wrote it.
They wrote it. They have been writing it for years. Of course, it cannot be anything else than awesome. All right, let's assume we have a couple of more component teams. And see what we end up having there. Now the organization is decided they start using Scrum for some reason. That Scrum is very famous of doing good things, and they put their product backlog and put the customer-centric requirements in their product backlog and hope that this will solve their problems. Soon they realize that for some reasons their product owners are unhappy. Why are the product owners unhappy? A couple of reasons for that. The first reason is that none of the customer-centric requirement is going to any of the teams. So we basically have to split the customer-centric requirements in our product backlog for our component teams. Typically, the person doing this is the architecture. Architect type of person splitting the items through three teams. So the teams start working on this item. And the other problem that makes product owners unhappy is that the work seems to be never evenly distributed. So it could be that A and B teams are really busy doing something. And C team has lots of capacity, but there's no work for them. So they start working on something that's really low in the product backlog. That doesn't please the product owner, but he or she doesn't want the team to be idle. So he puts that working on some low priority stuff. As a side effect, they create dependency that's distributed in time. They write some code in their component C, but it doesn't produce anything. And then after a couple of months, the A and B teams want to use that code, and C team doesn't have already forgotten what they have done, and it doesn't work, and they are annoyed by this kind of A and B team disturbing their sprint by asking questions on something that they did several months ago. One way of trying to handle this thing is that you add here some project manager trying to coordinate all the dependencies, but that's impossible because the dependencies are distributed in time. You cannot coordinate it. All right. Other thing that makes product owners unhappy is that when one of the teams is late, what can the other teams demonstrate in the sprint review? Pretty much nothing. One team is late, we have dependencies between the teams, none of the customer-centric requirements is done. Third thing that makes product owners unhappy is that who is going to test this thing? Are we able to test inside the sprint? Typical scenarios that you integrate everything together at the end of the sprint and none of the teams has time to test anything, and what they can test is only their own components, so you typically end up adding their extra team called testing team. So what we end up having here is that we have architecture, then we have some coding, and then we have some testing. Even we try to do Scrum. And it's not so bad doing a little bit waterfall. The bad that makes product owners really unhappy is that it typically is distributed in separate sprints. Doing anything requires at least 3 sprints. Always first the architecture is splitting things, then we code it in the next sprint, and the third sprint we are testing. Are you in this situation? Somebody says yes, somebody says no. What happens then when there's huge amount of work for the A team and they are overloaded? Of course, you add more people there. That's a natural solution. Of course. And then after a couple of months, half a year, B team is really busy. So what to do? You add some more people there. We cannot move the A people there because they're specialists in their component. They don't know the B stuff. And same for the C team. And then the organizations keep on growing, and testing team is always busy, so they keep on adding their people. So this is one reason why you have this kind of a component or technically specialized organization. Just keep on growing and growing forever. And they are always busy. Why are they always busy? One thing they don't realize is that when, let's say, there's some free capacity on the B team, and the manager says that, hey, we have some free capacity, maybe we could do some refactoring in our middleware layer or rewrite our middleware layer, and let's sell these great ideas to our product owner, so he prioritizes them in our product backlog. So they start creating work for themselves. There's nothing wrong with that, but basically nobody remembers that when they are busy that it was actually the work that we created for ourselves that made us busy, not something that the customers wanted. And they keep on growing again. What could be the solution then? And how does this relate to large-scale Scrum? This relates to large-scale Scrum so that when Buzz Wode and Greg Larman, who were these kind of creators of large-scale Scrum, were thinking that, we have seen the component team problems. What is the solution? They look in the literature, looking lots of books, and they found a couple of really interesting articles or books. One was written in 1995 about Microsoft, how they built Visual Studio. The key thing in building Visual Studio was not the component teams, it was feature teams and daily builds. Another source of information is from Ericsson paper published in 2000. That's also saying that their success to create something was based on feature teams and daily builds. So Baswode, Greg Larman started experimenting on feature teams, and they find that it works very well. So how does feature team then work? What is there? How does it relate to daily build? So in the feature team concept, we have typically happy product owners. That's something, yeah. And we have teams that are this kind of feature teams, meaning that they are able to deliver code across the stack and deliver some end-to-end customer functionality. And of course, we have few of them. And all the customer-centric requirements, they are going exactly to one team. This makes product owner happy. One team is late, doesn't matter, other teams can deliver things. I don't have to have the architecture or project manager doing there anything. I can directly work with the teams and get something out of it. So what is the problem here? And how does it relate to daily builds?
They don't have awesome components.
They still have the awesome components, of course. They didn't disappear anywhere. They just basically have those problems on this side. Huge amount of teams changing the same code base at the same time. This is why the daily build come there in the beginning of 2000, and where extreme programming moved it to extreme and said that instead of daily builds, we use the continuous integration. You have continuous integration, making sure that nothing is breaking there, and then you have lots of automatic testing, and then you have lots of unit testing, and you have the performance testing and things like that. All of them running automatically by CI system. So you move the coordination that was previously happening beforehand, you move it so it happens throughout the technology. And it seems feature teams is good concept, and one of the key things in large-scale Scrum framework that you should build your organization as building blocks are the feature teams, creating end-to-end customer functionality. And focus on having good engineering practices also. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Yes?
What were some of the challenges with the initial implementation of this?
Initial implementation of feature teams.
Yeah.
If you are moving from somewhere, the challenges are that you don't have these things. They are not existing. And the first thing where we started in 2005, we didn't have CI, we didn't have automatic acceptance testing. We had some unit testing, but we didn't have even the performance testing automatic. So it's really hard, basically, move to feature teams without that. It's really difficult. If you are working in really large organization, like we had there, the challenges were that how to form teams that are actually able to do something. Because you have so many components there. How to split it?
So how'd you do that?
How did we do that? We experimented many things. And then we find out, or later on, Baswode and Greg Larman find out, by splitting in the requirement areas that they call seems to be the working concept. But we tried out splitting on technology stacks, splitting on this kind of that has this kind of technological components stacks, basically that one area of team focuses on one part of the system just by doing feature teams inside that. And then we have lots of these things that we have something like 600 people organization, and throughout the whole thing, basically you had something like 100 people working on one part of the system, huge amount of components, and still having the dependency problems to get everything throughout the stack. But it was technological solution, but we didn't know anything about requirement areas at that point yet. We split it by technology. It was a little bit better than pure component teams, but it didn't solve the problem.
And how do you add more developers to the project, assuming that most of them are inexperienced?
How do you add them? One by one or team by team? It depends. So basically, of course, you add here in the team. If you have small enough teams, of course, you add new members inside the teams. Or then if you hire a group of people, totally newcomers, you could create a team out of them. I wouldn't recommend that. They have no clue about anything. So basically the solution would be add them to the teams. The problem is that when the teams get growing, they start growing. And at some point you reach the limit that our teams are too big. And then you cannot add any more people to the teams. In one organization, what the management tried there, against our advice, was that they had also quite big teams. They have started with big teams, 9, 8 people. All of the teams contain this amount. So management decided, so let's split the teams to half. Just by management decision, they can do things. And to surprise of all of these kind of coaches and in the organization, it seems that the productivity improved of the whole organization based on this. We had no idea why it happened, but it seems to happen there in that organization. Our prediction was that the productivity goes down. The manager tried to experiment things and it worked.
Yes.
Assuming you're transforming organization into feature teams, is there like standard recommendation for kind of training people should do in front, or any good practices, or you just form teams and say, no,
go ahead,
deliver features?
So the advice is that if you are in this kind of organization, if you don't have the continuous integration automatic testing, moving from component teams to feature teams is really difficult. You should first invest on continuous integration, some amount of automatic testing. If your organization is something like less than 50 people, you could try to do it in one go, if you are brave enough. If it's more than 50 people, experiment with some set of feature teams and some set of component teams, and basically grow your test harness at the same time, and making sure that you have still teams who are able to keep the components in shape. There's a really big risk I've seen that we tried in Nokia, that some of the organizations, we told them about component teams and feature teams, so they decided feature teams is good, we move to feature teams, without understanding that to make it work you need this. And they were big organizations failing miserably there. Yeah.
What about, do you have any experience in scaling Scrum, or scaling extreme programming, or scaling Scrum with pair programming, or like mixing those two areas?
I don't see how they are related. Maybe you can ask more
precise question. Yeah, for example, would it be a wise idea to start, instead of going straight from component teams, start with some pair programming, so we start developing developers that are able to move around the code, not only in, like moving from team to team, and make sure there are more and more people comfortable dealing with different parts of code, and then maybe even go to strict pair programming as you migrate to feature teams?
I have never tried it, but you can try it. It could work. I don't see anything wrong with the approach. It could work. It's something that I haven't tried. One thing I have tried is that when you have component teams, you form here one feature team. And basically, you try with this one feature team try to build up some stuff, and these people are learning across the components. What you were proposing, creating this kind of virtual feature team and people pair programming, and when they have enough knowledge, they move to one feature team.
Because it seems to me that like a common problem must be there is not enough people skilled in one component when you move from component teams to feature teams. They're simply you're not able to build enough feature teams because you're lacking specialists on topic X. Any advices or patterns how to solve that?
There are some patterns, and the pattern is that learning is really hard. It takes energy and time. If you survive in your organization without doing the learning, you don't do it. So if you say that it's good that you would learn something on other components, please do some pair programming. I would guess that it doesn't happen so much, because you survive in organization without learning. While you move to the feature team, the survival depends that you actually start learning and start delivering something. And you are forced to learn there.
Excuse me, how do you define feature? What is feature?
Some customer-centric item that the customer is needing. That would be product backlog item. And feature team is team that is able to take this item and deliver it to the product. Was that?
So you organize your teams around backlog items, yes?
Yes, but
So
you
for your backlog item is equal to feature, yeah?
It could be, but quite close. But you don't change the teams. You create stable, long-lived teams. And as he was saying, that there's a big risk that one team doesn't know enough from this product backlog item because they just lack some skills of C that would be needed. And the team's survival depends that they learn. So they focus on learning it. There's no other option for them. The product backlog item is for us. We need to do it. Yes?
What about the maintenance?
What about the maintenance? What do you want to know about it?
Let's assume that you get a bug. Right now it's impossible to, in the feature team approach, it's hard to identify where exactly is the bug. Previously you got some experts in the small area. Right now, as I understand, everyone are responsible for every piece of component.
Pretty much, yes.
So who should deal with the bug? Which one?
Not everyone. There are lots of solutions, different kind of solutions. The simplest one in this kind of feature team concept, if you have many of these things, you nominate that during this couple of next sprints, this team is responsible of fixing all the bugs. Then after a couple of sprints, next team is responsible of the bugs. So basically they don't have anything else to do than fixing the bugs. If you have enough that it fulfills their workload.
I assume that if a product is quite huge, it is impossible to have experts in every area, in every team.
Yes.
So it means that probably you get a bug and there is no expert in the team to solve it. How do you deal with that?
So in this scenario, they are responsible of solving it. If they find out that they are not able to do it, their job is to at least find out where is the bug and find out the information. So it's somewhere there. We have no idea what is there causing. Who would know that? And then they go and ask. Disturb a little bit one person's. That is the expert, and getting the knowledge there and maybe getting him or her helping a little bit that they can start fixing it and actually able to fix it.
Go and ask and repair.
Sorry?
You said that go and ask and repair, not only go and push the error into the other team. Because it's
No, you ask. You don't push the error there. You basically, your responsibility is fixing, you go and ask help. Help us to fix it. You don't move the error to that person.
Let's say we have only one bug here, but what if you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc.?
Yeah.
What in this case?
A, B, C. A, B, C, D is not the problem. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. H comes, after H you are in the problem. So basically, this what I draw works up till 18. After that you are in the problem. I will explain how do you scale then later.
If you have, for example, 15 people, and is it better to make bigger teams, more competent, or make more smaller teams? Which is, do you have any experience with this? Which way is better?
I would say it depends. In some organizations, they form, in the beginning when they start with feature team, they start with the bigger teams, just because they have the problem that they don't have the knowledge, and their goal is to later on to split them.
Talking about alphabet again, when you have so many components and our feature changes in every component, for example, 15 components, for example, in your practice, is it recommended to have 2 feature teams, one from A to H and the second from, I don't know, L to Z, or somehow organize knowledge that in one team we have specialists for few letters?
Now we are talking beyond H, that is number 8. So on the, if you have components, it's not a problem. If you have that many teams, that you have something like 15 teams, then this model doesn't really scale there. There's another model that scales there, beyond 8 teams. It's also based on the feature teams, but it's based a little bit on different things. I will tell you soon.
It seems to be easier when you have one system and many components, but it seems to be harder when you have, let's replace the component with a system, for example. So you end up with many complicated systems. Is it possible to learn, to get somehow knowledge in one team about many systems and many components?
No.
Yeah.
If they are complex systems, really complicated. Like you have one component would be this kind of voice signal processing, really detailed knowledge on algorithms that how to process digitally voice and how to analyze it.
How to deal with this.
And then you are not in this model. If you have so huge organization, you are in a little bit different model. And
I will talk to you later.
yes. This is the simple large-scale Scrum model up to 8 teams that you can use it.
One of the main reasons of organizations that to want to change is that they can handle an extra work. But if you go from component teams to feature teams, then your productivity drops for some time, I think. Do you have any advice how to survive that moment?
I have not experienced dropping in productivity.
Oh.
Lucky.
So basically, you have to think of it like this. When we have component teams, we maximize utilization of our experts. They work on something that could be not important currently. When we move to feature teams, we focus on and we are able to prioritize things that all of the teams are working on the most important things. That would be the goal. So maybe they go a little bit slower. They write a little bit less code, but they write the code that is really valuable now. But they write less. So is it really important to go to the direction of having lots of code instead of doing what customers are needing? Yeah. Yes.
There is anyone responsible for a component? If you need to introduce some change, for example, some architectural change or something like that.
Would there be one responsible for the component? There could be, and he would be called component mentor. As the name applies, his job is not to be responsible. He's some really good expert on that component. His job is to teach other people how the architecture should be evolving this thing and things like that.
He's outside of the teams?
He could be outside of the teams or he could be inside of the teams. Whatever. At least when you start, he or she typically is outside of the teams and helping all the teams. Then later on, when teams get knowledge, he could just be part of one team. And some of his job is to be the component mentor still of this. The idea would be that in the long run, you don't need the component mentor, but the more complex your component is, the more problems you have there, the longer you could end up having this person. His responsibility is not to fix problems, not to review all the commits. His main job is to help other people understand the component and work with them.
Is he responsible for architecture that support the best of, I don't know, performance of this component?
Yes. He knows it best. He has been working longest there, so he should be there looking that it's evolving in some meaningful direction. All right. Let's look a little bit what I have on the slides. Maybe we have covered these component teams, feature teams. All right. Control theory. Couple of slides of theory, and then I bring the theory back to what I mean with how I want to use it. Control theory was developed. One of the control theories was developed by William Ochi. He identified this kind of 3 basic control systems in organization that are really nicely applicable. He has also invented theory Z according to well-known theory X and Y, and he's still a living person doing some research, improving the school systems in the United States. So what kind of control systems in organization are that William Ochi identified? We have first market control. Market control is something that is based on exact contracts. Typically that if you have some money, you buy something with that money. If you go to shop, you are hungry, you want a chocolate bar, you look for which chocolate bar would be that, and you put your money in the table and you get the chocolate bar. Exact contract, exactly working. Works typically between companies and inside the companies on level of profit and loss. This is where you typically have this kind of market control. Then there is this kind of a clan control based on informal values and rules that people agree together. The funny thing about this clan control is that William Ochi claimed that this only thing that works in controlling work is that when the task is unique, interdependent, or ambitious, like software development. And of course, we have then bureaucratic control. Bureaucracy has this kind of negative meaning, but in Ochi's paper, it has nothing negative. He's using Max Weber's definition that bureaucracy is something that when your work is something that you write processes there, it's the most effective way of managing work if you have some type of work. And one example of bureaucratic process is employee agreement. You go to work into some company, you sign the employee agreement, and basically you agree that the company gives you supervisor or manager, and the manager evaluates you and gives you work. And you trust that the manager is evaluating you fairly. Here comes the key problem in organizations, or key clash. We have manager executing bureaucratic control, and we have clan system there where the team are working in the front line. And if the manager tries to put this kind of bureaucratic control on people on the front line, that is not applicable there. You get the conflict between the people and their manager. The people think that the manager is not evaluating them anymore fairly. They are measuring performance like written lines of code or something like that. It doesn't make any sense. All right, how do we use these things? This we skip. So, Scrum. How does control theory fit in Scrum? We have market control here in the beginning. Sprint starts, product owner is discussing with the customers, prioritizing the product backlog, trying to get most value out of them based on what the customers are willing to buy. Then the sprint starts. The team is left alone. They can do whatever is needed to achieve the work done. They can use whatever control they like, and typically they use informal rules, follow informal processes, agree how to get things done, and at the end, the team is evaluated based on market control. What are they able to produce? The product owner is evaluating that, and the product owner is also getting feedback from the customers and stakeholders. What is there? What is valuable? So product owner is evaluated from the market control. Team is evaluated on market control. What they were able to produce. Works really well. So control theory and the planning. We looked there this kind of a coordination chaos. This is another way of looking at coordination chaos and looking there the control mechanism. So the first approach was that we have the project managers there, we have lots of technical specialists, and we form this kind of a projects that control people's time. And we have more projects and more bureaucracy and less this kind of a clan control. We have here big bureaucratic layer, project managers allocating people's time, that we have 10% of that people there, 15% of that people there, and so on, and huge amount of agreements, processes that you need to follow and fill up the forms. So we have lots of bureaucracy in organization, a really small thing that the people can work here as using client control. Another approach is the program approach that is basically a little bit better. We form this kind of technological component teams, and we still have programs executing things. So how does it look like? Programs coordinate teams instead of people's time, a little bit better, but not much better. Still a huge amount of bureaucratic control, a little bit more client control because we have component teams. But we have huge amount of dependencies between the teams, and programs try to coordinate that one. Doesn't really work. Then the feature teams concept, how does it look like? We have feature teams. They are able to deliver the products by themselves, not much dependencies between the teams. They work directly with the product owner executing market control. And in the technology, people coordinate with technology as described here. So the most of the coordination happens on the technology level. And teams a little bit coordinate the dependencies that they have between each other, but they use informal rules how to do it and how they can agree by themselves. And more teams. And what happens to the control layers? Market control goes closer to the teams. Bureaucratic control less, and we are able to extend the client control more. Less bureaucratic rules that we have to follow. More focus on client control that really works on controlling people together, producing something valuable that we cannot bureaucratically define. So, and this is basically the question that we have here. We cannot move to feature teams. We need to utilize our specialists. No, we don't. So what would be the value? Here we have feature teams, and then we have the component teams and the programs. If we look what is here important, when you have programs, it's the coordination. It's coordination cost that is mandatory waste there that you need to have. And with the feature teams, you don't have this waste, but you have to spend energy somewhere. And where do you need to spend energy? You need to spend energy in learning. You need to learn new components, you need technical skills. But this is investment. It pays off during the time. Coordination cost, it's just cost. It never pays off anything. So moving to component teams is simple but not easy. We discussed many of these things. It's a real challenge. It's a leadership challenge. It's a cultural change. It's what I said, learning is really hard. You have to create organization where surviving requires learning. Otherwise, people don't learn. And you need leadership support, so you need somebody who can support the organization. It doesn't work otherwise. So how do you descale with less? Scrum works on one team. That has been probably proved. So what is large-scale Scrum then? There is lots of scaling framework out there currently. Most of the scaling framework look at Scrum as this kind of team process that basically only with the team. And they build on top of the Scrum lots of other layers of whatever. And basically they don't work so well, because adding those layers you end up adding the bureaucracy there. And large-scale Scrum is Scrum. It tries to expand Scrum throughout the whole organization. So everything you do using Scrum. So what it is then? As described earlier, Greg Larman and Bas Bode came up with quite excellent books containing 600 experiments. If you read the books, they are really great if you understand them. A friend of mine read the books and said, the books are really good, but they look like this kind of Wikipedia containing lots of experiments. I cannot do much with the books, just the experiments. And Bas Bode and Greg Larman, they get lots of this kind of feedback that, yeah, they are really good, but what to do? I cannot decide which experiment to run, where should I start, how to come up with something. So they started thinking that, what is there missing? And they find out that actually the books that they wrote from themselves. They were something that they were needing in 2005. They were writing books for themselves. They didn't write for the people who want to move to large-scale Scrum. So they started looking backwards. What were we missing? So what were they missing? They were missing principles, descriptions of frameworks, and some guides how to get things started. And maybe this got less popular. It has been a long time there. The books of the experiments have been there something like 5 years, and nobody has moved anywhere. Now they have created some principles, a couple of frameworks, and a little bit guides that you can read from Less Work website, and now it seems to be popular. So it seems that you need some basic instructions how to get started to gain popularity. So how do you enable Scrum throughout the organization? Principles. Some of the principles are not actually principles. We have something like lean thinking there. If you know lean thinking is a huge topic, putting that as a principle doesn't make any sense. But they put it there anywhere. And then there is something about organization and how to adopt and what happens to the managers. And trying to move the managers to be this kind of a coaches, leaders who move the organization, help them, developers to solve their problems. That's one of the things. They have steps how to start adopting this kind of a large-scale Scrum in organization, what needs to be done. Then they have a structure, what kind of structure you have that discuss team-based organization with feature teams and how you organize in community of practice and how do you organize product owners and requirement areas, and of course then the key thing is technical excellence that you cannot live with. So what is there? This I basically draw already there in the feature team. A little bit more details. We have teams. We have one product owner up to 8 teams. Then we have team. Each of the team have their own sprint backlog. Then we have a Scrum Master there and things like that. Pretty simple. It's pretty much Scrum just multiplied. One product owner, many teams. Like large-scale Scrum is Scrum. And then we have in large-scale Scrum, of course, the sprints. But they are pretty boring. They are same as normal Scrum sprints. All of the teams start in the same time. They do the planning. At the end of the sprint, we have the product increment. Next sprint starts, all the teams start in parallel, and then we have the product increment. Like normal Scrum, nothing fancy. So what is then different in large-scale Scrum? Other thing that's different compared to other frameworks, it's more with less. No extra roles, no extra artifacts, no extra processes that are needed on top of Scrum. Build on Scrum and add only minimum things or a little bit less. And if you look at this kind of a thing that you should build your method up instead of scale it down. This was already found out by Barry Beam a long time ago. That works much better. What we have learned from agile development is that you should start with smallest possible thing instead of having huge framework and ask people to tailor it down. Why is it the bad practice to tailor big framework down? Of course, if you look that people start who are looking at the framework descriptions, who are they? They are people without experience. So this is this kind of framework description. What should we do in our organization? We have tens of pages of description. Should we do this or not? Should we have release trained engineers? Maybe, maybe not. All right, large-scale Scrum huge then. What do we add here? We had product owners, area product owners, that is it. And then we have area product backlogs. One extra role and one extra artifact.
Could you please give us an example of area? Is the set of features this area?
I have here some example. So we have the product owner. Here are some requirement areas like billing, performance, and advertising. And we have the product owner looking at the overall priorities, and then we have area product owner. And for the area product owner, they have their own view of the product backlog. That's a little bit on more detailed level, but it follows the same priorities than the main backlog. Area product owner is acting as a product owner towards their teams. And then there was a question when you have lots of teams, what to do. This is the scaling model.
Excuse me,
yeah.
Is this backlog customer-centric?
Yes.
Yes, it is?
Yes.
From the customer point of view?
Yes, of course. Why not? We have some billing requirements and advertising requirements.
Okay, but the same situation with one team only and specialists. Yes, you have a product backlog, and you have, for example, one team which doesn't have anything to do for the few next sprints because there are no requirements for them.
All right. So what would the product owner do in this scenario? He would, of course, move the teams from this other area to another area, if it's long term. This is one of the key responsibilities in product owner in this. Look at the workload, look at our backlog, how we can move the teams between the areas.
What if you have a product backlog item that is partially in billing, partially in performance, and partially in advertising?
It's impossible. All the product backlog items go exactly to one requirement area. That's one of the rules. And it goes to the requirement area that has most work on that. And then the teams in this requirement area, let's see, their job is to coordinate with other requirement areas how to get it done. But it's exactly on one area product backlog only.
So you are saying that billing guys don't care about performance?
The performance here is not the performance of the system, it's performance of the throughput. It's totally different area there. It's not the performance like normally. Okay. Otherwise it wouldn't be requirement area. All right, anything else? Yes?
Isn't this requirements area similar to components?
They are customer-centric requirement areas. They should be able to produce some end-to-end customer-centric functionality. The difficult part with this is that how to come up with this kind of requirement areas. The easiest way of doing that is show your product backlog to the customers and ask, so we have this product backlog. What of these things belong together?
But aren't you going to run the same trouble as you had with components? So I think someone asked this question, but I don't get the answer. If there is no more work for billing teams,
yes,
how do you utilize those teams?
The product owner decides that, all right, looking at the backlog, not much billing work here. Let's move a couple of billing teams to performance and a couple of billing teams to advertising.
But if it's going to be long term, then maybe there will be splitting of some busy areas into small ones.
If they are growing bigger, then we have to split them. And if they are growing smaller than 4 teams, then we have to think of, do we need them or join them together with some other team, other area. This is work of the product owner, looking at the long-term planning based on the product backlog, how to organize teams, where these kind of requirement areas we need to have, and things like that. All right. One short, less case study, not actually case study, but what we did in 2005 already. So I was working in browsing gateway, joined from another company, happily joined Nokia network side, and looking the amazing this kind of incremental waterfall process running 3 months increments, 1 month increment of specification, 1 month increment of development, and 1 month this kind of a testing in the one increment. It didn't really work. We have weekly manual builds. Individual component responsibilities. I was responsible of one component and myself was responsible. There's nobody else knowing anything about that component than me. I was developing that one. Testing and development totally separated in the same building, but you couldn't go there to testing. It's totally different end of the building, so it was not courage even to discuss with the testers. And then no automated end-to-end testings. We had some unit testing, but not much. And testing was done using this kind of a scripts that you follow from one tool called test director, and at that point and execute scripts and do it. We have huge amount of them. As a side effect, the releases were constantly late and they have lots of quality problems. So 2005, we started introducing large-scale Scrum there. And management buying was quite easy in this point in time because management was noticing this incremental waterfall is not really working. So Greg Larman and Bas Wode discussed with our R&D manager and asked, so would you be willing to try Scrum? The manager was, no, not really. Then they said, it will double your productivity. All right, let's try it. I'm not sure that they said it, but I heard the story like this. All right, targeted trainings to key influencers. So we basically trained in organization the key persons, that's what is Scrum. And then we got buy-in from lots of these persons. And then we had this kind of overall introduction of Agile and Scrum throughout the whole organization, training everybody. It was something like 150 people organization, not really big. And then we just created teams. The original teams that we created were focused on next most important feature areas that we're going to develop, but later on those teams became permanent. We didn't change them much. So and we started working with the teams then.
Were you actually building a browser, a web browser, or this is just
browsing gateway? It was something that in 2004 somebody has thought that it's a great product. When you had this kind of mobile phones that really couldn't browse very well internet, so you have to do lots of content manipulation, make pictures smaller, remove some content and things like that. Redirect the persons to the different URLs when they're going to different URLs, collect some information where they are going, and maybe do even some virus scanning there. I don't think these products anymore exist. Sorry?
They do at NSA.
Yeah, but they do totally differently. All right. So what we did, we had this kind of functional departments and we had the project running, so we created product organization with the feature teams and started looking at, so product owner, what do you need from us? We moved our organization from this kind of a silos to having this kind of co-located spaces. Okay, first thing we noticed there, this kind of manual weekly build doesn't really work when you have many people working there in parallel in code. It doesn't really work. So we used this kind of magnificent tool at that point called cruise control. And we noticed also that branching doesn't really work. When you have many people working, we have ending up huge amount of merge problems and things like that. And we decided to stop working it. And we noticed that clear case is not very good tool either of many people working on same code base in parallel. All right.
What was the replacement of the clear case?
We were not able to replace that. But we noticed it's really bad tool. We had to stick with that. We tried to replace it with SVN, but we didn't manage. There was some part of the organization resisting that really heavily. Manual testing. We use this kind of test director or quality center currently that has this kind of manual script. Didn't really work because we were building sprint by sprint new functionality and running tests doesn't really option. So we had huge amount of manual tests. We need to automate them. The management has great idea, let's automate them in India because everything is cheap there. So basically what happened is that they automated their something and then basically we look what they produced, okay, let's rewrite them everything. So it was wasted time and effort. What we did there, we built our own testing framework. Don't ever build your own testing framework. It doesn't make any sense. We built it quite a good testing framework, but we could have taken something that was built in another part of our company that would have produced us much better reports and things like that. But yeah, but we wanted to build ours. Don't do it. Performance testing, we pretty much soon find out that we need to do them. So we basically run the scripts that we're installing every night and run the performance test in the morning. We get performance test results on top of the CI tests. And then stability test we were running also in part all the time. So this was possible there already in 2005. So we have lots of project managers there, at least 3 of them. One development project manager and one testing project manager and then one project management. I have no clue what he did. Just project management stuff. So we decided that we don't need those project managers, or the actually R&D head said, so we are using Scrum, don't interfere with the teams. Project management was really unhappy with the situation. No. He was there something like over 1 year he was hanging there and then he decided, nah, this doesn't make any sense. I move somewhere else. There was not work for him, but the organization decided that we don't want to fire him. He was a senior guy and what he did, he moved to China and basically became project manager for another product.
He was outsourced.
He outsourced himself to China.
So who is responsible for, I don't know, salaries, rises, holidays, and all this boring stuff?
Salaries. We had still some managers there in the organization that taking care of the boring, this kind of holidays and salaries. We didn't outsource them. We have actually lots of managers there in the organization also. Most of them also were in the same situation like project manager. When we start using Scrum and it started working there, not much work to them. I have no clue what they did day long, day out. Sent some boring emails though. So, results after this kind of 1 year, we were able to, of 1.5 years, we were able to achieve something like 100% automated testing. Basically, all our acceptance tests were run on nightly basis. Our CI system was rolling up them to results. So every morning we saw that which tests are passing, which are not, and we could basically deduct what is our shape. And as a side effect, our product was pretty much in the shape that we could release it after every sprint, because we run also the performance and stability test all the time. And side effect of that was that in the first time of product history, we were able to release the product with the planned features before time that was planned for the release. That was a big problem for the organization. How to handle this? All the other projects are late. How can we release something before the deadline that was planned something half a year ago? But we were able to do it. What were the challenges there? Or
Sorry, I just wanted to ask that when you had it earlier than they expected, what happened?
So,
like sales, marketing, none of them were ready.
So, this was the time when Nokia Networks was merged with Nokia Siemens Networks. And the release that we did before time was that already at that point in time when management has decided somewhere in the upper levels that we will move the whole product to China. The teams that are currently working with this product are outsourced to an outsourcing company because we want to get rid of some people. We were able to create magnificent Scrum teams that were working really, really well. And management then decided, yeah, let's kill the whole thing. It's really brutal. It was really, really hard. It was really amazed in the organization that, hey, what is this? Because you can look at from management point of view, they never understood that we had here really good teams working, and the atmosphere was really good. It was so good that we have one subcontractor there. He was offered better place, not some other customers with better salary, basically said, hey, go there, we can offer you more money. And the subcontractor said, no, I'm not going. I have so much fun and learn here that I'm not going to go there. So basically we had this really good teams going on there, and then management does some stupid things. But you cannot predict those things from the beginning. And at that point when it was released, I was not anymore part of the organization. So I don't know how the marketing stuff were happening, but it was a problem for them. I heard that discussed. The main problem was that because everything was budgeted that this will take this and this amount of money, and what to do with the extra money? It's a really big problem. You cannot put it there. If you put it back there, then for next project we don't get so much money and things like that. So it's a huge problem. Sorry?
What happened to the product?
I think the product was still working something like 2 years ago. Even in China, they were able to deliver something with that. I think it's now discontinued because nobody needs the product anymore. Even in China, you don't need it anymore. All of the phones are already this kind of real web browsers that you don't need any proxy there to convert anything. So what challenges we had there in the way? Pretty much technical challenges. We started with this kind of a Scrum Masters that were managers and find out that this is not a good idea. They were bad Scrum Masters. They wanted to be managers, and basically it doesn't really work. And people were looking that this is my manager, how do I please him? And after a couple of sprints, we realized that, okay, let's put the managers somewhere aside. And the team can select their own Scrum Master.
How hard was for the teams, and in general, are there any good practices and advices learning to code in a new way with tests, acceptance tests, CI, and everything? Or
it was not hard.
Okay.
I think introducing the idea was a little bit difficult, but first time we tried it out, when we have the testing framework, let's first write the acceptance test before we write the code, and then start writing. Oh, but it's so easy. We don't have to do anything manually. Just run the acceptance tests in the CI. It will automatically execute everything. It's so much fun. Even the test fails now, but hey, cool. We don't have to just push things to the version control and run things and then get the thing working. The initial thing that first to try it was hard, but then get it going was quite easy.
Did you have a sync meeting?
Which kind of sync meeting?
Any kind of sync meeting, other than usual refinements and planning. So.
We had daily scrums. And we have Scrum of Scrum there also.
Okay, so no extra ceremonies for syncing other than usual Scrum ceremonies.
Could you explain us what is the biggest difference between your framework and scaled agile framework?
I'm not going to answer that question either. I have a 45-minute presentation on what is the difference there. The key difference...
Okay, the biggest advantage of yours framework.
Biggest advantages. Biggest advantage compared to whatever other scaling frameworks. Yeah. It's, as I said, large-scale Scrum is Scrum. It basically expands the Scrum throughout the whole organization. It doesn't put Scrum as a team process there in the corner that other scaling framework. It is the framework that describes minimum things that you can get started, and you have to figure out what you add there by yourself by using the experiments. Other frameworks describe everything, and then you say that select something from this everything. Most of the frameworks are that. This is the differentiating factor. There are other differentiating factors also. Yeah.
And comparing to the Nexus?
Somebody says that Nexus is, how was it? It's the main difference is that it doesn't take in account anything else that you have Scrum teams. It doesn't take the organizational impacts at all in the count. It doesn't describe how you adopt Nexus in organization. It has no ideas on this. It's this kind of a multiple Scrum team process, Nexus. How to do multiple Scrum team thing. I'm not really not expert on Nexus. I know quite much of Scale Agile framework. Should we drink some beer?
So